welcome back to the Dock Line. Today, we are joined by a lifelong member of our community and a true heavyweight in the Texas legal system. She's dedicated over 2 decades to the rule of law, starting her career defending law enforcement at the Attorney General's office before serving as a Chief Felony Prosecutor right here in Montgomery County and as First Assistant District Attorney in Grimes County, so just our neighbor. She is board certified in criminal law, a distinction held only by a fraction of attorneys in the state, and has tried over 100 cases ranging from domestic violence to murder, you true crimers. Beyond the courtroom, she is an educator at Baylor Law School and a community leader, having served on boards like Family Promise of Montgomery County. She is currently a candidate for the judge of the 359th District Court, if that's not a mouthful. Please welcome Jo Ann Linzer.
Thank you.
So we'll just get right into the meat and bones of it today.
Okay.
That's what the people want. So most of our listeners see District Court 359 on the ballot and might not know exactly what happens behind those doors. Can you break down what this specific court handles and how decisions made there impact the average resident of Montgomery County?
Sure. I'm glad you asked that because as it's early voting, I'm at the polls a lot, and people will come up to me thinking they don't live in the 359th district. The 359th District Court means it's the 359th District Court that was created by the legislature. So in Montgomery County, we have the 9th District Court. So that's a lot older of a courtroom or a court. And then we have the 221st, the 359th, and the 435th. So we have 4 criminal district courts in Montgomery County, and the 359th is one of those. A felony criminal court is one that individuals who are charged with a felony offense, their case could end up in that court. So if someone is arrested for a felony, meaning that they could potentially go to prison, then that's the kind of case that ends up in the 359th District Court. It serves all of Montgomery County. It is not just one district. And so the cases that go on there would include low-level drug charges all the way up to capital murder. And I've got experience handling all of those kinds of cases. And this court also handles what's called a diversion court. So if somebody has, let's say, been a veteran and they have served our country, and as a result of that service, they have PTSD. They end up maybe getting addicted to medication or self-medicate, and then they get caught with drugs. So they have a possession of a controlled substance charge. That individual might also be a candidate for a diversion program where they can take advantage of the Veterans Court program and have the opportunity to become a contributing member of society instead of being saddled with a felony conviction. So the 359th District Court handles all kinds of felony cases and the diversion courts and helps to keep our community safe.
That's great. I know that there are a lot of listeners that were kind of looking for that deep dive into what that is. You see it on your ballot, and you know, sometimes we just go in and we're overwhelmed with all of the choices. So Thank you for that. Now, you've seen the system from every angle, as a prosecutor holding criminals accountable and as a defense attorney ensuring rights are protected. How does that 360-degree view shape your philosophy on what justice looks like?
So I think the thing that's so important about this is handling cases as a prosecutor was one of the best jobs I ever had. You were able to meet face-to-face with victims, hear their stories, and then tell those stories to a jury. And it was an incredibly good job, and I worked alongside of some amazing lawyers in presenting cases and finding justice. As a defense attorney, I've had the opportunity to see those cases from the other side and to sit alongside of the people who are charged with crimes. And those cases are also deserve an opportunity and a day in court. So I think having worked as not only a prosecutor, a chief prosecutor actually in the 359th District Court, the court that I'm running for, the 221st District Court, and the 9th District Court, being a first assistant in Grimes County, actually serving as the DA in Grimes County when my boss became a judge, having done civil commitment of sexually violent predator cases as a special prosecutor, and then working as a defense lawyer. I've actually done almost every job you can do in a courtroom that other than the judge, as a lawyer. And so I feel like that experience brings balance. The scales of justice are the symbol of the courts for a reason, and that's because you need to have balance. Now, if a violent offender comes before a district court judge and they need to be punished, that's what will happen. If an individual is wrongly charged, then they need the opportunity to have their case heard. And I think that's what having worked both sides of the bench and almost every job you can have in the courtroom will bring when I serve as that judge.
Yeah, that comprehensive look really gives a lot of detail into your experience. So I appreciate you going through
Sure.
those jobs. In your platform, one of your main mentions is that it's very important to not legislate from the bench. Why is it critical for a district judge to stick to the law as written rather than letting personal or political agendas slide into your rulings?
We have some excellent folks that work in Austin and create law for us. That is their job. The judge should stay in their lane, which is to interpret the law and apply the law as it's written. If there is a law that someone doesn't agree with, then the place for that to be changed is not in the courtroom, but at the legislature or, it's through the legislature. So if a judge gets in there and tries to start creating law on their own, it messes the whole system up. And so a judge should not be an advocate. A lot of times I think people misunderstand the role of a judge and they feel like it's the judge's job to make the case. But the judge is there to what we say is call the balls and strikes. So they make sure that they understand what evidence should be let in, what evidence should be excluded. And having tried over 120 jury trials, I've handled complex cases. I've handled DNA evidence, technology. And as the judge sitting on the bench, your role is to determine what evidence comes in, what evidence stays out, and then to rule according to the way that the previous courts have ruled, that precedent, and the law that we have. To get in there and try to create your own law, it just gets messy and it's dangerous.
I agree with you. Having raised your family here and now up in this community, what is your assessment on the current state of public safety in Montgomery County? And what do you see as the biggest legal or safety challenge facing us right now?
So we're very lucky in Montgomery County that we have great judiciary. We have great judges on the bench. All of the judges that we have 20 years of experience or more in criminal law. And I think that's important. When you look at my experience, it is more in line with the judiciary than my candidate. I'm the only candidate with more than 20 years of experience in the race. The other thing that we have is good law enforcement officers in Montgomery County. And our law enforcement officers work well together as a team. They do task forces, and they protect us very well. But our county is growing, and with growth comes more crime. And so in order to make sure that we keep Montgomery County safe, we need to make sure that our bonds are set appropriately so that someone from this county who maybe is a repeat offender has an appropriately set bond so that we don't have them committing crime while they are on bond, so that they have an appropriately set conditions to prevent them from reaching out to victims, to make sure that they show up in court. You may have seen during the pandemic that there were folks in Harris County that were being let out on personal recognizance bonds. What that means is it's just a promise to show up. And those folks were charged with violent offenses, and then they were going out and reoffending. And so there's this revolving door of crime that was happening in Harris County. And because we are next door neighbors with that county, we got the spillover. And I feel like in Montgomery County, serving on this bench, I would want to make sure that I towed that line with the judges and the law enforcement that we have to make sure that people who are charged with a crime in this community understand that it's not tolerated here. We are not a revolving door of crime. If you commit a heinous crime here, a violent crime here, and you are guilty of that, you will be held accountable. And as a judge of the 359th District Court, I want to make sure that I respect all the victims that come through the courtroom, but that I also give folks who are charged with crimes their day in court. Because at the end of the day, as long as we make the right call, and by we, I mean the judges that sit on the bench, we make the right call, then we have less opportunity for a case to go up on appeal and be overturned or sent back. And that way we don't have victims sitting for years wondering what the final outcome of the case would be. And so sitting on that bench, I want to use all the experience that I have to continue to keep our community safe, because like you mentioned, I have family here and I would never want to do anything that jeopardized the safety of my family. So of course that affects every other family that's in this community.
Thank you for that. Now, before we got started, you told me an interesting story about the current sitting judge. Can you tell me a little bit of your experience with the current judge and how you guys know each other?
Yeah, so I went to McCullough High School, graduated of 1985 Highlanders, and when I was at school there, Judge Kathleen Hamilton was the French teacher at the high school. I still remember exactly where her room was, down the hall next to the stairs. And one night, as the chief of the 359th District Court, we had been in a week-long trial, and we were waiting for a jury to come back. It was about 10 o'clock at night. And as I looked around the courtroom, the lieutenant of major crimes, Bill Bucks, was in the courtroom, and one of the bailiffs, Troy, was in the courtroom, the court reporter, Martha, in the courtroom. There was a court coordinator, and then the judge. And I said, do you realize that every single person in this room was at McCullough High School in 1985? And she said, that is amazing. So every single one of you were at McCullough in 1985? And we all said yes. And she said, did you ever think that we would all be sitting here at 10 o'clock at night waiting on a jury to come back? And the lieutenant of major crimes said, yeah, but I thought I would be in another chair.
That's a great story. I wanted the viewers to hear that. I think that's excellent. We get to hear a lot of your positions on things and your experience, but I think sometimes those personal stories just give a chuckle, and also show your connection to the community. So you've been here a little bit. So before we go, I always try to work in a little game with all of the guests. So today we are going to play a little segment called The Verdict.
Okay.
In, obvious reasons.
Sure.
So these are quick fire Montgomery County disputes, if you will, and you give us your ruling.
Okay.
This will really let the people know your style of a judge.
All right.
So this is the Lake Conroe verdict. Do you prefer early morning fishing, or would you rather do a sunset boat cruise?
Sunset boat cruise.
Okay, good choice. The controversial verdict. Beans or no beans in your chili?
I knew that had to come up. No beans.
Okay. A true Texan.
Yes.
The legacy verdict. You've lived here quite some time. What is one hidden gem or spot in the county that every resident, new or old, needs to visit at least once?
Joe's Italian Restaurant in Conroe on Fraser.
Man, that was quick. Joe's, shout out to Joe's. Maybe they'll give us like a little appetizer discount or something.
I bet
we can work a dock line discount out there. So Jo Ann, thanks for sharing your experience, your vision for the 359th today. It's clear that your roots are deep in the community, and your extensive record in the courtroom speaks for itself. We wish you the very best of luck. If our Dockline readers, watchers, were going to try and find you out in the world, where would they find you? How can they get a sign for their yard or, speak to you in person?
Oh yeah, thanks for that. So I'm working at the polls this week, and I have been pretty much at every one of those. So we have polls open in Magnolia, in Montgomery, in the Woodlands, Conroe, Spring, New Caney, Splendora, and I feel Willis. And so we're going out, or I've been going out to each one of those. I've got people volunteering to work at the polls for me. So if you go out to one of the polls and you want to talk to me and I'm not there, please find someone in a red Linzer shirt and they know how to get in touch with me. I'll do my best to go out and meet with somebody to talk to them. If you'd like to, social media, we've got a Facebook page, Jo Ann Linzer for Judge, and we're very active on that. If you want to send me a message, I'm happy to respond to that. You can also call my office or stop by my office at 322 North Main Street in Conroe, Texas. We have signs, we have t-shirts, and we have push cards with information for folks. But I would just love the opportunity to talk to anybody about my experience. It is just a fact that my experience, I've got more than twice the experience of my opponent. I've been around for a very long time. I've done every job that you can do as an attorney in the criminal court system, and I've got the passion, the desire, and the heart to serve our community. So I'd love the opportunity to earn the votes of your listeners, because every vote matters, and that's so important to me. So, and experience matters. So thank you so much for that.
Sure, Jo Ann. Well, listeners, you heard it here. Thanks for tuning in again to the Dockline podcast. We always encourage you to stay informed, get to know your local candidates, and get out to the polls and vote. March 3rd is quickly approaching. You've got a little bit of time of early voting left. There are even some evening hours. There are early morning hours. So find your polling location. Look up Montgomery County elections if you don't know where that is. And as always, stay tuned, and you can't complain if you don't vote, right?
Right.
All right. We'll see you next time.